What is up, ladies, gentlemen, and my NB friends? Welcome to the Commander Theorem. I'm the Commander Theorist, and today we're actually going to be taking a look at a deck that isn't quite a Commander deck per se. Instead, we're going to be taking a look at a Jodah Archmage Eternal Brawl deck. Brawl is a format Wizards designed to work with their new Magic Arena game, heavily influenced by the rules and designs of Commander. A Brawl deck must contain exactly 60 cards. It has to be a singleton deck just like Commander, with the only multiples of a card allowed of basic lands. And your deck must only contain color identities of your commander, which can be a Planeswalker. You are also restricted to use cards only in the current standard environment. For this deck, however, since Jodah is technically a 5-color commander, we're free to use any cards from this set as we wish. Let's begin by taking a look at what Jodah does. He's a 4/3 human wizard for 1 generic mana, and then 1 mana each of red, blue, and white. He has flying, which is a keen evasion ability on a creature, but his static ability lets you play 1 mana of each color as an alternate casting cost for your spells. This is a powerful ability that will let you play your larger and costlier spells for less. For this build, we're going to go with the theme of historic cards. Historic is a new umbrella term that refers to artifacts, legendary cards such as Planeswalkers or legendary creatures, and the saga enchantments. Our deck has a heavy focus on legendary creatures, with a few potent Planeswalkers to round out our arsenal of powerhouses. Let's begin with our legendary creatures. These are going to be the main offensive force in our game. Arvad the Cursed is a 3/3 with both Death Touch and Lifelink, which are 2 excellent offensive abilities. He also offers a +2/+2 Anthem effect to all of our other legendary creatures, which is an excellent boon to increase our damage output. In Brawl, players begin with 30 life, as opposed to in Standard 20 life or the Commander 40 life. Next is Bayard, who offers a more defensive package. He gives us some Pillow Fort utility, requiring opponents to pay mana if they choose to attack at us or Planeswalkers we control. He also has Vigilance, making him doubly useful as an attacker and a blocker. Etali Primal Storm is a card from Rivals of Ixalan, and it's a powerful Elder Dinosaur. Whenever Etali attacks, you get to exile the top card of each player's library, and then you can cast any of the non-land cards you've exiled with it without paying the cost. So while this does come off as a bit chaotic and uncontrollable, having little control of what is actually coming off with this ability, you do stand the potential to sneak some of your opponent's best cards out from their ability to use them. Not to mention this ability is also tacked on to a 6/6. Evra Helicon Witness is a creature I'm pretty interested in trying out in my decks. Normally, it's a 4/4 with lifelink, which isn't super bad if not a little overcosted, but for 4 generic mana, you can swap your life total with Evra's power. So in Brawl, this can become a 34 for 4 mana. That can end games and net you a ton of life gain with that lifelink. It's a bit on the fragile beat stick side in this deck. It's susceptible to removal, but I want to give it a shot. Joira is the first card we will talk about that will synergize with our strategy. Whenever we cast a historic spell, which is the majority of our spells anyway, we get to draw a card. So we can easily get our engine going with Joira on board of casting a spell and then drawing a card. Wrath Capuchin Ship Mage is next, and it gives our historic spells flash. Since we don't have access to Vidalcan Orrery in this format, Wrath Capuchin will fit that niche quite nicely. Samut, Voice of Dissent, is a great creature to drop early game. All of our other creatures gain haste, and she's really tough to beat in combat. We also can use her to untap our other creatures, though I don't see us using this ability quite as often. Shalai, Voice of Plenty, is a great card in Commander, and she will shine in Brawl just as well while she is legal for the format. She gives us and our other creatures and our Planeswalkers hexproof, making removal much harder to use against us. We can also use her to buff up our creatures. Tatyova, Benthic Druid, is another draw engine, gaining us a life and drawing us a card for each land we play while she's in the battlefield. This is incredibly powerful, as not only can we draw cards off of Joira when we cast spells, but Tatyova lets us draw cards off of our land drops as well. Our last legendary creature is Zakama Primal Calamity. I never thought I'd see the day where you can drop off 9/9 for 5 mana with only upsides, but here we are. Zacama has a laundry list of abilities, letting us untap our lands, burning creatures, acting as naturalize, and having a bit of life gain to boot. Zacama is the perfect card to drop using Jodah's ability. We run 2 Planeswalkers in this deck, Bolas the God Pharaoh and then Vraska Relic Seeker. Both of these walkers have very powerful abilities that will make them very oppressive while they're in play. Bolas can remove our opponent's hands, denying them the resources to play their game, and Vraska can slowly take out our opponent's board state while also ramping us. We do run a few support cards to work alongside our historic spells. For starters, my personal favorite of Artificer's Assistant lets us scry 1 whenever we cast a historic spell. Pure value on a 1/1 flyer. Cabal Paladin burns each opponent for 2 after each historic spell we cast. Daring Archaeologist lets us return an artifact to our hand from the grave, and I get a +1/+1 counter on it whenever we cast an historic spell. Given the sheer amount of those kind of spells in this deck, this can get pretty big. Along those same lines, the Avenant Trapper taps down opponent's creatures control for each historic spell we cast. This lets us clear our opponent's blockers for an alpha strike. Joira's Familiar is a nice cost reduction creature, cheapening up our historic spell some, and also makes our commander only 3 mana to play. Noxious Gear Hulk is a brutal removal spell in this deck, and while it doesn't synergize much with our legends, as an artifact creature it does count as historic and it destroys a creature and gains its life for it. We run 4 artifacts, each of which are considered historic spells as well. Mox Amber is a prime candidate for this deck, functioning as ramp as well as a historic spell for our other cards. Gilded Lotus is a powerhouse in Commander, and it too shines nicely in Brawl as a nice mana rock. Prophetic Prism fixes our mana, draws us a card, and it counts as a historic card. Lastly, our treasure map scries us 1, and then we can eventually create treasure tokens to ramp us, and when it transforms into Treasure Cove, we have access to more card draw. Speaking of treasure, our counterspell of choice in this deck is Spell Swindle, which will give us treasure equal to the CMC of the countered spell. We have a few non-creature spells that do a great deal of work. Board the Weatherlight specifically lets us dig 5 deep for a historic card, which is crucial to get the key card we need. Brass's Bounty gives us treasure for each land we control, and given that this will be cast for at least 5 mana, you will gain a lot of treasure and therefore ramp quite a bit. Primeval's Glorious Rebirth lets us recover all of our creatures and planeswalkers as they go to the graveyard by reviving every single one of them. Rishikar's Expertise is a huge card draw spell, and it lets us cheat out a card with CMC of 5 or less. Urza's Ruinous Blast will kill anything that isn't legendary, make for an excellent board wipe that we are mostly immune to. Deep Freeze is good removal, turning any creature that's a threat into a useless wall, works great on commanders. Journey to Eternity is a great reanimation spell for our creatures, and on the obverse, Profane Procession can help clear out a ton of creatures that we later on can steal. Sandworm Convergence is one of those cards that I love the concept of, but I've never found a purpose in Commander for it that I couldn't find another spell to cover that weakness. It protects us from flyers and it gives us huge worm tokens. And lastly, Sunbird's Invocation gives us a cascade-like ability for our spells. This can give you more and more value as we drop our spells for that 5 mana. For some, we're already netting value out of their cost being paid for by the Wooburg, but getting 2 spells for the price of 1 is even more value. For the full deck list, which also includes our take on a 5-colored Brawl mana base at the time of recording, you can check the TappedOut link located in the description of this video. Jodah's deck wants to do 2 things: play historic spells and play them cheap. If we come across some of our bigger spells, we can simply pay the 5 colors to get them played for less, and we want to obtain as much value from these cards as we can. We are rather susceptible to token decks and any deck that can run on a lower mana curve, as we take a few turns to really start getting going. Jodah's build is suited for more of the long game despite its ability to start taking off as soon as he hits the field. That'll conclude our look at Jodah Archmage Eternal. I very much enjoy the flexibility of this legend, being able to play any cards I want with any color identity, and we have the ability to cast spells for cheaper, which make this a very good commander with a lot of potential for variety. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Commander Theorem. What Dominaria legend would you like to have us cover next week? Let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave a thumbs up to let others know it's worth a watch. You can subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of any new uploads, and if you'd be interested in helping us upgrade our equipment and begin experimenting with live action gameplay, you can check out our Patreon. I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, I will see you rockstars next upkeep.